This will happen when an avoidant realizes they lost you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're delving into the fascinating world of attachment styles and relationships. Ever wondered why some people seem to push away when things get too close? It all comes down to a fundamental requirement, the moment they realize they've lost you. We're talking about avoidance, folks who equate intimacy with a loss of independence, leading them to pull away when things get too cozy. But here's where it gets really interesting. Many dismissive and fearful avoidants find themselves stuck in an endless loop, chasing the highs of the honeymoon period. It's like they've reunited with a long-lost friend at the wild part. It's all happening unconsciously. Stay tuned as we unravel the mysteries behind these behaviors and how they impact relationships. So, picture this. Back in July 2020, I decided to run a little poll in our community, just asking a simple question. What kind of attachment style would you say your ex had? And let me tell you, the results were pretty eye-opening. Out of the 450 folks who chimed in, a hopping 79% said they either had a dismissive avoidant ex or a fearful avoidant ex. Talk about a wake-up call. It got me thinking. Have you been avoiding me lately? So, being the curious soul that I am, I dove into research mode. I hit the books, talked to the pros, and started digging into this whole avoidance thing. And you know what I found? Something pretty interesting about how avoidants, especially the dismissive types, act when they think they'd lost you. Let me break it down for you. I've come up with this theory, call it the avoidance circle of love if you will. It's like a clock with 8 stages. First, the avoidant craves love. Then they find someone, and it's all roses and rainbows. But then, boom, stage 3 hits. Their core wound gets poked, usually triggered by their partner's anxious vibes. And here's where it gets juicy. Stage 4, they start thinking about hitting the road. But hold up, we're only halfway through the cycle, folks. Now, stages 5 and 6. That's where the real drama unfolds. Stage 5, they actually peace out of the relationship. And stage 6, well, that's when they go through this weird separation high, feeling all liberated and stuff. According to some research I found, they're initially relieved to be rid of the relationship baggage and feel like they're reclaiming their independence. Makes sense, right? After all, most dismissive avoidants are all about keeping their freedom intact. Alright, let's delve into Attached by Amar Levine and Rachel Heller for a sec. These folks wrote the book to help grown-ups navigate the love game. Now, on page 118, they drop a gem. Avoidants often mix up self-reliance with independence. So, picture this. Avoidants freak out when things get cozy with someone because they think it means giving up their freedom. But here's the kicker. That's not true independence. It's more like a shield they've built to keep their autonomy intact. So when they call it quits to protect themselves, they sort of slip into what I call the mini honeymoon phase. Check out stage 6 on our circle. Notice how it lines up perfectly with stage 2, the real honeymoon phase. That's no coincidence. Here's my theory. Dismissive and fearful avoidants often get stuck in this loop of honeymoon highs, bouncing from one relationship to another for that initial buzz, then splitting up and repeat. They'd fall for their partner during the honeymoon phase because it's all shiny and new, and there's not too much commitment involved. But as the relationship gets serious, that shine wears off, leading to the downfall you see in stages 3, 4, and 5 of our avoidance cycle. Stage 6 is where that mini honeymoon kicks in. The first honeymoon was all about love with no strings attached. But the second one, it's about reclaiming their independence and feeling pumped about it. That's why they get separation elation. It's like reuniting with an old friend after ages apart. Now here's the kicker. Most avoidants are doing all of this without even realizing it. According to Free to Attach, avoidants are like emotion ninjas. They bury their feelings deep down, so much so that they seem to bounce back from breakups in no time and hop into new relationships like it's NPD. They see a new person as a fresh start, a way to dodge dealing with their own issues. It's like a temporary escape from the emotional baggage of their past. So in theory, they can just hit reset and start the whole cycle over with someone new, skipping stages 7 and 8 like it's no big deal. But here's the thing. Does it actually work? Is jumping into a rebound relationship an effective way to deal with grief? Well, a quick YouTube search will tell you what most folks think. Rebound relationships? Nah, they're a bad idea. Video after video warns against them, saying they're a recipe for heartbreak and disaster. So despite what I've uncovered, the general consensus is pretty clear. Rebound relationships, not the way to go. So here's the scoop according to The Atlantic. Rebound relationships, despite their bad rep, actually seem to help folks move on. In a study, those who found new partners after a breakup felt more confident, trusted others more, and were less hung up on their exes. Amy Hackney, a psychology prof, even found that college students who started dating again soon after a breakup felt like they got over it faster. So, for avoidance, jumping into a rebound might seem like a smart move. It fits with their cycle of going from one honeymoon phase to another. Every relationship effectively has 2 honeymoon periods. One when they start dating someone new, and another right after they break up with someone. But here's where it gets interesting. I went on a quest to find out just how common rebounds are among avoidants. Turns out there's not a ton of data on this. The best I could dig up was a sketchy blog citing divorce stats, claiming that about 75% of people in long-term relationships rebound after a breakup. Not the most reliable, but it's something. So I ran a poll in our community. 52% said they had rebounded, while 48% hadn't. Now, for the 48% who didn't get to skip stages 7 and 8 of our avoidance cycle, things get real. When the breakup hits, stage 7, it's like a domino effect straight to depression, stage 8. They're left wondering, why does this keep happening to me? It's a rough ride. Let's break it down with 3 to attach again. Avoidants tend to start longing for an ex when that person is no longer available, out of the picture romantically, and usually out of contact. Unavailable means you've broken up and moved on, or you're showing signs of moving on. Out of contact simply means you're not in touch. That's the only scenario where an avoidant feels safe enough to put you in the phantom ex category. And that's where the trouble begins. Now, back to stage 6, the separation elation stage. The last thing an avoidant wants is to be bombarded with anxiety from you, constantly needing to reassure you. One key point I haven't covered yet is why some avoidants can skip stages 7 and 8 and just hit the reset button on the whole cycle. Here's the scoop. Bad breakups. Really bad breakups. My first heartbreak ended over text. Yep, a text breakup. And then there was that time someone proposed to me at a market. And I said no, and they burst into tears. The worst nightmare for an avoidant is dealing with clingy, anxious behavior and constantly needing reassurance. All of this just validates their decision to leave and stay away, prolonging their honeymoon phase. It's only when an avoidant truly realizes they've lost you that they get the chance to pine for you from a distance. Or at least, that's the theory.